Coming up on Locked On NBA Daily. Hornets fans are dreaming big after last night's win over the Celtics. We'll talk about the ceiling to the league's hottest team. Meanwhile, add Mike Brown to the list of people who have a problem with the Thunder. Does the league need to step in? And finally, we do a deep dive on a pair of overlooked playoff teams. Locked On NBA Daily starts now.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On NBA Daily, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. However you're tuning in on YouTube or on your podcast app, thanks for making us your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg, and today we're talking about just how far the Hornets can go in the Eastern Conference. We've got a game of Make It Take It coming up in the next segment, and then a deep-ish dive on the Raptors and Timberwolves. We're doing it with the help of Locked On's local experts. I have two of the best with me, as always. From the Locked On Nuggets podcast, he's a senior NBA writer for the Action Network. It's Matt Moore.
There's a wood frog that you can literally freeze solid, and it survives. Like, you can freeze it solid. Up to 70% of their body can freeze, and that frog survives. It's truly the most clutch animal you're going to find.
From the Locked On Bulls podcast, he's a Bears and Bulls creator for Bleacher Report. It's Haize.
I have no random animal facts because I am the animal here. How about that?
The animal, the petty animal. Let's start with a team that has everybody in the league buzzing. The Hornets beat the Celtics last night in a blowout win over the in Boston on the second night of a back-to-back. The Hornets have now won 6 games in a row. They're one of the hottest teams in the league, if not the hottest team in the league since December. We've talked about them here on the show as a sneaky playoff team, but last night's win has Hornets fans dreaming even bigger. Locked On Hornets, I thought, did a great job breaking down last night's win. I want to play for you a part of that episode right now.
The Hornets, they beat the Celtics 118-89. It's the Celtics' largest loss of the season. It marks Boston's second wire-to-wire loss of the season. It's the Celtics' third 20-point loss of the season. So the Hornets just beat the second-best team in the Eastern Conference, a squad already having tallied 40 wins on the year. So what does it mean for Charlotte? They've won 6 straight. They've won 10 straight road games. Now the Hornets, again, having won 6 straight games, they won each of those games by 15-plus points. It's the longest streak by any team since the 2017-2018 Warriors. Hey, they were pretty good.
I think people are going to look at the three-point shooting because it has carried this team all season long. And for the game, the Hornets shot nearly 39%, holding the Celtics to 28%. But the 10 or the 28% is honestly not even the most important number. It's that they held them to 36 three-point attempts. I wrote this over and over in my Every Hornets Box Score game notes. They did the impossible. How many times have teams been able to turn the Boston Celtics into a 2-point shooting team? I don't know, but I would venture to say it does not happen very often. They were running guys off the three-point line. They were taking their confidence away. It was incredible what the Hornets were doing, turning defense into offense. That's not how you blow the Celtics out in a regular season game. That's how you win a god-darn playoff series.
I'll ask you the question. Are the Hornets just going to win the championship, Doug Branson? Is that what we're watching this year in 2025, 2026? Are we watching a championship contender?
I already came into this game saying that there wasn't any need at this point in time to put a ceiling on what the Charlotte Hornets could accomplish.
That is some big talk coming out of our friends over at Locked On Hornets. Shout out to Doug Branson. Matt, I'm going to ask you the crazy question. Can the Hornets make the NBA Finals?
Yes. I would have said no like 5 years ago. I would have been like, no, under no circumstances can they do this. But we're in a different era now where we are seeing these teams make these runs. So the 2023 Lakers go from the play-in tournament to the conference finals. The Heat go from the play-in tournament to the finals. We've seen the Mavericks go from a 5 seed to the finals. We've seen the Pacers go from a 5 seed to the finals. 4 seed last year, rather. So we are seeing deeper runs for teams outside the top 3, which historically those are the teams that win the title. So Charlotte can't win the title, but we are in an era where I do think you can make a run. And it's teams Not necessarily like Charlotte. They usually actually start later, where it's like, oh, it was really since like February 1st. They played great for 3 months and then just kept going until it ran out of gas. This has been going on longer, which is kind of the interesting question here is, okay, if this is just who they are, the last 30 games is just like, this is who they are. They're not running hot. This is just the level of team that they are. Then you kind of have to start assessing them differently, because if they had simply been that team for the entire year, now you're talking about a team that's probably in conversations with the Knicks. They're probably hanging in there. Like, they're in competition with Cleveland. Like, they are a team that we would be talking about from that perspective. The other problem I have, though, is just like, look, there's just no experience here. LaMelo's never been in a playoff series. Khan's never been in a playoff series. And we just do not see these teams make a run from having never won a playoff game to making the finals. So I think probably like second round, third round. I'm not going to be shocked if they make the conference finals, Haize. I'm just not.
Yeah, you can. I mean, that's fine, but it would be shocking. They're not going to make the conference finals. This is a good basketball team. They're not that. They're way too early on. They're too young. They're too inexperienced in the playoffs. What they're doing in the regular season is great, and it's a great foundation to build on. But they're not going to go. They're not the Golden State Warriors. They're not going to go from being a team that's just young and scrappy to going to a conference finals right away. They're just not going to do it. It's good what they're doing now. Like I said, it's a great platform to build off of. It's going to give them a lot of great data and things to build off on this offseason to take that next step. But I still have questions if they're going to win the playoff series. I'm not ready to even count them to be able to do that quite yet. What they're doing here is great. They still got a lot more to show before I'd be willing to go that far with
Yeah,
it.
but you're talking about like what they will do, right? We're talking about what they can do, right? It's all probability.
Possibility and probability are different. Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No. I'm not ready to say it's probable yet.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if you're not favored, you're not probable to win.
Yeah.
What team do you feel like they can't beat in the playoff series?
Any of the experience. I don't think they can get
Really?
past Boston. I don't think they can get past. Even if they went with Cleveland. Like, experience does matter in that. The New York Knicks, I wouldn't pick them to win over the Knicks, which if I'm going to get anyone, they can upset the Knicks if that's the case, if that's the team, because I don't believe in them either. But I'm not giving them any team that's actually been on a playoff run before. I'm not giving the Charlotte Hornets credit over them yet.
I want to try to spin this a little bit positive here because, look, I do think that the big dreams, it's easy to just kind of come in and be like, look, this Hornets team is not going to make the finals or even the Eastern Conference Finals. And you're probably right. They probably will not do that. But, Walker Mail brought up the Warriors in that clip that I just played from Locked On Hornets. And look, the Warriors didn't become the Warriors until they had some of those trials and tribulations in the playoffs, right? They had to go up against the San Antonio and lose. Like, they had to get through those playoff moments and gain that experience, to your point, Haize. But we also watched that Warriors team go toe-to-toe with that Spurs team a couple years before they won the championship in 2015 and say, wow, like, that's a really good basketball team. There's something special happening here. And I do wonder if maybe for the Hornets, we're looking at a potential series, whoever it's against, whether it's Boston in the playoffs or Detroit or whatever, the New York Knicks, whatever team. And I do wonder if we're going to look at this team and say, wow, this team is as much of a fun story as they were in the regular season. Can they actually push a team and make us think differently about where this thing is going? Because I'm watching these games. That is a good basketball team. To Locked On Hornets' point, this is not just a team that is winning the three-point variance thing. This team defends like crazy. They box out well. They turn the ball over too much, which is their big bugaboo. But they pretty much do everything else at a really high level. Charles Lee's got them playing really well, Matt.
I mean, I think defends like the devil, I think, is a bit much. That's
9th in defensive rating since the middle of December when all of this really started. But against Boston, man, they were on a string. Like, they amped up their defense in that game.
Yeah, I think, some of this is the consistency is the hard part, right? I think that's
Yes.
one of the issues that you kind of run into there. They don't cause a lot of turnovers, and they don't allow that low of a shooting percentage. I do like their defense a lot in terms of they protect the paint really well, and that's a surprising thing about them. Where I'm like, how are you doing this? How are you getting this done? Moussa Diabate, one of the things that probably bodes well.
Kalkbrenner's been good.
Yeah, one of the things that probably bodes well for them in the playoff series is they got a lot of lineup versatility, where you can be like, all right, we need to go small. All right, we're putting Moussa Diabate. We need to go bigger. All right, putting in Kalkbrenner and Diabate. All right, we're gonna go. All these type of things. But I will just, kind of generally say The Miles Bridges minutes are really, 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 really bad. They're really bad. They're really bad consistently, and that might wind up being something that becomes a bigger story in the playoffs.
We're going to keep talking about the playoffs here on Locked On NBA, including what's the easiest path through the Eastern Conference to make the finals for the Hornets or any other team. And could we see teams trying to game the standings? Make it, take it is next. This special segment is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft. We're looking at every aspect of the draft to let you know which tasty flavors are the best and which just might be sleepers. The board's set, the flavors are ready, and only one is going to take the top spot. 5 Hour Energy has a wide variety of flavors. They really do have something for everybody. 5 Hour Energy shots give you the boost that you're looking for with 0 sugar. And I'm looking at my draft board, and I think the clear number one has to be cherry. It's classic, sweet and light tart edge. It's bright, it's punchy, and has that slight tang finish. You can't go wrong. It is the go-to for a reason. But here's my sleeper pick: strawberry banana. They have a sweet strawberry flavor up front, a soft, mellow banana finish with a smooth, creamy fruit profile that tastes like a fruit smoothie. Low acidity, easy to drink with a gentle sweet aftertaste. So if you want to find your new favorite flavor, you can do it at 5hourenergy.com. Check out their 5 Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. I pulled up the Game Time app, I picked an upcoming NBA game, and I had tickets locked in within minutes. I love seeing the all-in price up front, which meant no surprise fees at checkout. What I saw is what I paid. I was also able to see my seat view from my seat before I bought my tickets, making my decision easy. The zone deal stood out. I chose the section, Game Time picked the seats, and I saved money. They also have great last-minute options, too, with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices right until tip-off. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Locked On NBA Daily. The best way to support the show is to subscribe on YouTube. We air Monday to Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, wherever you get your podcast. It's Thursday, so it's time for Make It, Take It. You guys know the rules. 2 takes, 1 winner. Let's start in New York, where Mike Brown got called for a tech and the Knicks lost to the Thunder last night after complaining about a non-call on Shai making contact with Jalen Brunson on his way to a layup. Mike Brown, still annoyed about it after the game, told reporters, quote, SGA, he's a tough cover, and he does a great job of convincing the referees, probably better than anybody in the league, that he's getting hit, end quote. Guys, Mike Brown is the latest person to call out the way that the Thunder are officiated. Does the NBA need to take a second look at this? Haize, you won last week, so you get the rock first.
I mean, they're officiated like a NBA champion with an MVP on it is. Like, so they're going to get those calls. It's just going to happen. It ebbs and flows. It's something that we've seen throughout the game. Does the NBA need to do something about it? By the time they try to implement something, that it may already shift, especially if they don't go as far, don't win the title again. They're going to get the benefit of the whistle. It is what it is. We can talk about Shai and his grifting and all that type of stuff, but the reality is that's going to be the thing. It's going to be how they're officiated.
Let's not act like this started with them winning the championship. People were complaining this 2 years ago. They're complaining about it last year. I will say, like, there's this is a more complex thing than people make it out to be, where oftentimes people are like, that's not a foul. And like, if you understand the rules, like, yes, that's absolutely a foul. Yeah. Like last night, the one that Shai got where he like flailed in the air. Here's what happens. Towns turns sideways to him. If you turn parallel to him with your shoulder, if your shoulder is next to Shai, he is going to reach up under that shoulder, under your elbow, and he is going to generate contact that way. You have to stay parallel, and you got to show your hands. It's the only way to be able to do it. You may still wind up with getting a call. I will say that I think there's a problem that so many people feel the same way about it, right? Where it's like everyone across the league, it's not just like Nuggets fans or Wolves fans or Knicks fans. Like everyone's kind of like, man, this guy gets a crazy whistle. The problem is like there's no data to back it up. So the league's just going to be like they're 15th in free throw rate defensively. They're 15th rate in free throw rate offensively. There's no evidence that they're getting a beneficial whistle. What do you want? It's one guy in particular that gets a very specific type of whistle because of how he manipulates space. I don't think that the league needs to step in here but I do think that it's a problem about how the league has allowed offensive players to manipulate the system and take advantage of it. We just have too much of that now, and they've got to pull back on a little bit of that because nobody wants this type of basketball.
People are going to complain about officiating all the time. It is what it is. Usually isn't going to win, make it, take it. But in this instance, it is. I'm giving the points to Haize here because, look, if you're the best team in the league, you're the best player in the league, the MVP. We found reasons to complain about Steph Curry breaking the game, or people did rather. And so I do kind of just think it is what it is. And I'm kind of with Haize. Just kind of get over it. Play your game. Moving on, the NBA updated its standings website to include the current playoff picture. And I was looking at it, and if you look at the East standings, the 8th seed's path includes the number 1 seed Pistons and the number 4 seed Cavaliers. The 7th seed's path has the Celtics and the Knicks in it. So, Haize, would you rather be the 7th seed in the East and face the Celtics and Knicks? Or could we see teams try to game this thing, get the 8th seed, and try to get the more inexperienced Pistons and a Cavs team that's been up and down all season long? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. It's not like it would be the first time that we've seen something like that. I still think, especially when you look at, a team like your Miami Heat, if they end up sneaking in as the 8th seed or something like that, the Orlando Magic, they may try to take advantage of that inexperienced team. But I tell you what, because it can happen, don't make that let you think that it's not going to bite you in the butt to do so. This is a Detroit Pistons team. Yeah, it's their first year being this good. But they're so sound on both sides of the ball. Their point differential is so good, and their placement on both sides of the ball. So I'm looking at it and saying, like, yeah, I could see a team trying to strategically do it, but I don't think it's going to be as successful as if it was, like, for example, like the Charlotte Hornets as the number 1 seed. Like, if there's that level of inexperience.
You will absolutely not see any team do this because it involves the play-in tournament. That's the difference here.
Oh, that's a good point.
You're not going to be able to. These teams are terrified of the play-in tournament. Like, I keep yelling, like, hey, no 7 seeds ever failed to make it, guys. Like, you have 2 home games. You're probably going to win one. The drop is usually huge from 7th to 9th. They're terrified of it. Teams are just really worried about that one game environment where a team goes crazy and gets it. So you're not going to see any team like risk getting into this 8 seed position. I would say that, like, if I had to choose, I probably do want the Pistons from a front running position where everything's gone great for them this year and their offense is really mediocre a lot of the time. Like, Detroit's had an amazing year. The problem is whenever you have this kind of amazing year that's like such a feel-good story, it usually leads to you being probably a little higher than where you probably need to be. And so I do think that the Pistons are a vulnerable 1 seed, but no team's going to mess with the play.
I do want to point out that everything you pointed out about the 7th seed applies to the 8th seed too. Like, even the 8th seed gets 2 games. They're going to get 2 games a shot to get it done. So I won't necessarily count that out. It's not like they're jumping to the 9th seed where they only get one opportunity.
But if you tank one, you're taking one of those away. If you literally are trying to manipulate it. I don't think he's saying
take one to not win in the play-in. I think it's saying take one to for your playoff seeding to drop leading into the play-in.
Could we see teams game it? Could we see teams game it and try to get 8 to play the Pistons and Cavs?
Yes, but that doesn't mean lose in the play-in. That means get the 8 seed with your standings before you go into the play-in, Matt.
Okay.
Well, ironically enough, the team that we were just talking about, the Hornets, are in that 9-10 game. So any team that gets out of the 9-10 part of the play-in tournament ends up just getting the 8th seed. So we could end up in a battle of feel-good stories in the first round between the Pistons and the Hornets. Points to Matt for making my question sound stupid. The next final question here, make it, take it. The Atlanta Hawks, 5 games in a row that they've won after last night's win over the Milwaukee Bucks. After writing off the Hawks, at least I have. Do we need to respect them more in the play-in race in the Eastern Conference? They're currently 10th at 32-31, tied in record with the Charlotte Hornets, and just a stone's throw away from maybe even climbing up into that 7-8 part of the bracket, Matt. You just won the last round. Back to you.
I mean, are we talking respect them as a play-in team or respect them as an actual team? Because that's
more in the play-in race. Yeah, respect them more in the play-in race.
Look, they're there.
Teams that can make it out and make the postseason.
You know, the Hornets are this great story right now. Everyone's going to hold on to some belief in the Magic. You know, whether it's the Sixers or the Heat, there's going to be this conversation. But the reality is, like, no, these teams are all flawed. They're all around 500, so they're all flawed. So if you're playing the best basketball at the right moment, like, what if the Hornets tail off? What if the Hornets get an injury? What if whatever happens, the Hawks can absolutely sneak in? We see consistently teams that don't belong there be the ones, or the team that we are most disappointed to see make it in are the ones that make it in. Now, Personally, not excited for having to talk about Jonathan Kuminga and how he matches up with the Pistons over the course of 7 games. But it seems like that's our lot in life this year. But look, their defense has been absolutely tremendous the last couple of weeks. They're starting to figure out an identity. I'm still not necessarily convinced that Atlanta is going to get it together. I don't trust the Hawks, but they are as real as any other team in this group, no matter what it looks like at any given moment.
Yeah, I think they are real in the playing, and you have to, like, when you have Jalen Johnson averaging an almost triple-double, like that's a player that in a play-in tournament to just make it into the playoffs, like, yeah, can they win 2 games to get it done? Yeah, they can do it. Is it probable? We'll see. But, like, you have Jalen Johnson there who's now leading the team. Trae Young is now completely gone. You even have your on-ball scorer in Jonathan Kuminga. If he keeps this up, and like you said, what karma would that be if we have to talk about a whole playoff series of Jonathan Kuminga and possibly cooking? But this team does have balance. That is part of the reason why they traded Trae Young. And so because of the way that the individual young pieces fit on this team, and you have a guy like Jalen Johnson that I may not count on him to be the best player in a 7-game playoff series, but can he be the best best player in 2 nights against other teams that are around 500? Yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
The Hawks rather, have won 5 in a row, like I said, but they've beaten Brooklyn, Washington twice, Portland, and Milwaukee. All stinky, stinky, stinky teams. They do play Philadelphia on Saturday after a very long break. They played last night, Wednesday, and they don't play again until Saturday, so good for them. They'll have the rest advantage, obviously, in that game. And then Dallas, who's also tanking, and then Brooklyn, who is still tanking, and then Milwaukee again, who still stinks. So the schedule, in other words, has been really soft for Atlanta, but you got to beat the teams in front of you. It is what it is. Points to Matt here. You're going to win, make it, take it, because both of you guys said the same thing, basically, and those are the rules, and that's just how it goes. The Timberwolves and the Raptors play tonight, and we haven't spent much time talking about either one of them recently. We're going to fix that after this. Stay tuned. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by TurboTax. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really got your situation. But this year you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar that you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about the rest of your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing that your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment today. Thanks for making Locked On NBA Daily your first listen every day. The Locked On Podcast Network has a show for every team. Check out Locked On Hornets, Locked On Thunder, Locked On Knicks for more on today's top stories. I want to end the show today by talking about a game tonight between 2 teams that I feel like get overlooked a little bit when we talk about the playoff teams. The Raptors play the Timberwolves in Minnesota tonight. The Raptors are the 5th seed. The Timberwolves are the 4th seed in the West. Let's start with the Timberwolves, guys. Weird season, but they're 9th in offensive rating, 9th in defensive rating. Made the move for Ayo Dosunmu, who we all liked at the trade deadline. Anthony Edwards playing at an MVP caliber level will probably end up on the final ballot in terms of the top 5 in MVP race. The question, I guess, Haize, is why aren't they better, and why does it feel like they've been a little overlooked in the Western Conference right now?
I mean, isn't this where we are with them every year around this time? Like we're always wondering why aren't they better, and then they turn it on. Now, I'm not saying that they just should get the benefit of the doubt that they're just going to turn it on this time again like they can, because eventually you run out of luck in that. You don't turn it on, and that ends up being the case. But I think that this is just who the Minnesota Timberwolves are. They're just a team that they wake up at the right time. And can they do it again and sustain that for another playoff series? That's the question. But with them going to 2 straight Western Conference Finals, maybe that's the right case. Maybe they don't burn themselves out, and then they're able to take advantage of these other teams in these playoff series because they were able to pace themselves better.
I've said this a lot about them lately. By the way, Anthony Edwards downgraded questionable tonight, injury maintenance, so that's a bummer. They don't have a floor. They just don't have one. They can lose to anybody on any given night. They can beat anybody on any given night. They win more than they lose, which is good, because otherwise you would just be like a 500 dangerous team, and those are the worst. But Minnesota has been pretty consistently just like okay. when it comes to how they manage their schedule. They get up for these really big games so they can beat anybody. Their ceiling is so high, but they don't have a floor. That to me is still an Anthony Edwards problem. It's that I don't feel like Ant every single night is like, I'm going to destroy you, and we're gonna have a blowout in the fourth quarter, and I'm gonna sit down and rest the last quarter. And he'll say it's about how they're covering him and they're doubling him and all these types of things. And maybe that's it. Maybe they just need some sort of adjustment with how they're doing these types of things. Here's the stat to kind of explain it. Versus teams that are in the middle 10, so 11 through 20 in point differential. The mid teams, they are 10-10. They're excellent versus really bad teams, and they're great versus the really good teams. They are mid versus everybody in the middle. And until you learn that consistency where you don't lose to teams that you should not lose to, you're going to continue to have problems setting yourself up for the best possible run. You need a top 2 seed so you got more home court advantage and series finish earlier. They don't put themselves in the best position to win. That's Minnesota's problem.
It's a really good stat because I was looking up the similar stats on Cleaning the Glass. Second net rating against teams with a top 10 point differential. To your point, very great against those top teams. But if you're not handling business against the teams that are slightly worse than you, right? Those mid teams, to your point, that's kind of why you end up in the standings the way the Timberwolves have ended up here. To me, I look at the defense. 9th in defensive rating sounds good, but this was a team that had been consistently top 3, 4, 5 in defensive rating over the last couple of years. It just feels like they've lost that part of their identity, which was defend like hell and let Anthony Edwards, deliver in the fourth quarter. And they've lost a little bit of that there. Now, can they get back to those high highs in terms of defense in the playoffs? I think probably, right? Ant, we've seen him turn it up defensively. McDaniels is what he is, which is awesome defensively. Gobert having another great year in terms of rim protection. Like, they can get there, but they haven't gotten there, to both of your guys' point, consistently all regular season. Let's talk about the Toronto Raptors, the other team that they're playing tonight. All the movement in the East that we've been talking about in terms of the playoff standings, and the Raptors have just been a steady team, just right there, 5th place, not in real danger of falling into the play-in. They have to monitor it a little bit, but they're not in complete danger. They got to be conscious of it. But look, a solid playoff team alongside the 4 teams that we always talk about in front of them in terms of the Pistons, Celtics, Knicks, and Cavs, yet we don't talk about them in that same conversation. I'm not necessarily arguing that we should, right? I think there's a clear gap between those teams and the Toronto Raptors. But why is it that we don't? What's stopping us specifically with this Toronto Raptors team in terms of talking about them maybe making a run to an Eastern Conference Finals, Haize?
I think they're just an awkward team. Like it's weird because they're talented, they're solid defensively, they win games, but this is a team where I'm still just not confident in the fit of their roster together. Now, over the course of a 7-game series, maybe that actually works out to them. Maybe they can go a lot of adjustments on the fly and throw out different looks. But there's something about the Raptors team that I just look at, I'm just like, I don't know their thing is yet. And usually if you talk about players that can go on like a conference finals run or something like that, like you have some type of idea. I still don't feel like the Raptors have an identity yet. And maybe that's just my perspective.
They are a little bit of an inverse of the Wolves, I think. So here's one of the things with them. With Brandon Ingram on the court, they are 7 points worse defensively per 100 possessions. What you find, and they're one of the worst teams in the league at spot up shooting. They have this problem where their good defenders can't shoot and their good shooters can't defend. So their overall profile is like, look, they're a good defensive team, but it's hyper concentrated in certain minutes, particularly Jamal Shed. And they can score, but it's hyper concentrated in certain minutes. And that should be good because it should be like, oh, well, you can mix and match, but it doesn't work that way. Because when you put a mix of the good offense and good defensive players, you just kind of come out in the middle as mid. You're not necessarily excellent defensively. That to me is kind of like where we're at with this team. They're not explosive offensively. So you don't get that kind of sense of like, wow, they're really exciting. So they don't get any attention that way. And they don't have a lot of signature wins because they are like the opposite of the Wolves, where I feel like they're very consistent in who they win and lose to. They are 6-16 versus top 10 teams in point differential. 16th in point differential versus those squads. They are the opposite of the Wolves. They can't beat anyone serious, but they take care of business versus everybody else. And those teams just don't get as much attention. Really solid squad. Great work by Rajakovic this year. But, I don't have a lot of faith in them being able to put together what they need to in a playoff series.
Yeah, like their floor is really high, and they're meeting that floor pretty much every single night where they don't have the ceiling like in Minnesota. It's a great point, Matt. I look at this team too, and I say for teams in the past that we've seen make runs from like the middle of the East to an Eastern Conference Finals or an NBA Finals, right? Like we think about the Hawks squad with Trae Young from several years ago that made the Eastern Conference Finals, or the Pacers last year, or the Heat in 2023. Those teams all had a player who could just erupt and just sort of transform into the best player on the court on any given night. And there's a lot of players that I like on this Raptors team, but you don't really picture them doing, like, you're not going to see Scotty Barnes necessarily erupt for 56 points in a game in the playoffs. Like, you're not going to see that, in part because the ball's going to be in guys like Brandon Ingram's hands and Emmanuel Quickley's hands a lot also. They just don't really have that one guy that you feel like might be able to, fuel a surprising run there.
The way I feel about it is, like, if you were to upgrade Ingram to one more level up, if they had Tyrese Maxey instead of Brandon Ingram,
Something like that.
If they had, and like those are like, Tyrese has been like a fringe MVP candidate this season. That's how good he's been. But if he's been that level, even if you go to like a Jamal Murray, honestly, with how Jamal's played this year, those type of guys, if you just leveled up Ingram as the best player in terms of offensive explosiveness, you would feel, I think, a lot better. Now, maybe Ingram surprises us, though. Maybe Ingram has like a great playoff run. He's a veteran guy. Like, maybe he just has a great playoff run and they're able to put together something to make a little bit of a run.
Surprise would be the right word there, Matt, I think. Finally, last thing. I don't know if you guys saw Shai in his post-game press conference last night. He was wearing something that looked like a Snuggie mixed with a squirrel costume. For people on YouTube, you can see the picture here.
Looks cozy.
Hey, does Shai need somebody in his life to step in with some of these outfits?
No, I mean, that outfit is really indicative of how you can't be rough with a teddy bear. You can't play rough with him on the basketball court, or else it's going to be a foul.
Let's end on that. He wins.
If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA Daily wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Thank you to Matt and Haize for their expertise every day. Thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network your first listen. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA Daily.